What's up guys, today's video is on the Crimson Vow Precon Spirit Squad. We're taking 15 cards out, putting 15 awesome cards in, all for under $50. Let's check it out. Alright, before we go changing everything, let's do a quick overview of the Precon, its commander, and some standout cards. The commander for Spirit Squad is Millicent Restless Revenant. It is 5, a white, and a blue for a 4/4 legendary spirit soldier that has flying and the following fun abilities. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each spirit you control, and whenever Millicent or another non-token spirit you control dies or deals combat damage to a player, create a 1/1 white creature spirit token with flying. Right off the bat, you can tell this is going to be a very token-heavy deck and also probably a very spirit tribal deck. Luckily, they had some great reprints in here. Let's dive into those. Drogskull Captain was a awesome pick for a reprint. It was never really an expensive card, but for 3 mana, you get a 2/2 flyer that buffs all your other spirits and gives them hexproof. Yeah, if this one hadn't been included in here, it would have been the first card we added in. Keeping with the spirit tribal support, Supreme Phantom, 2 mana for a lord, is great, and the fact that it has flying as well is even better. At first pass, Mere Entity may not look like too much, but the fact that Changeling means it is also a spirit, and the fact that it can buff all of your spirit tokens for X amount, means you can get super big, super quick with this card buffing all your little creature tokens. This can be super deadly, and I'm so glad they reprinted it. Blue isn't the only one to get good card draw, and yes, while there is plenty of good blue card draw spells in this deck, perhaps the best card draw spell is Mentor the Meek. Getting to draw a card for 1 mana every time you put a spirit token onto the battlefield, which in theory should be happening a lot, is super powerful. What's even better is this was before they added all those once per turn clauses. And rounding out the best strategy reprints in the Precon, Reconnaissance Mission is amazing. When you're going super wide with lots of evasive tokens, having the ability to draw a card off of each one that pings an opponent is so nice. You better hope you have Reliquary Tower out because you are going to be drawing so many cards. So yeah, Spirit Tribal seems to be the way to go with this build, and that's what I'm going to improve on with the 15 cards in. First up, let's talk creatures. Guardian Faith is going to be the first one. It's a budget Teferi's protection. However, I think in this deck it could be even more powerful considering you can blink it and return it to your hand with several other cards in this Precon. Well worth the ad, and honestly, you need ways to protect your wide board of spirits, and this is one of the best. Next up is Nico Ona. Now, we don't have a lot of target removal in the base Precon, so that is one of the things that I really focused on improving. Being able to destroy enchantments every time you play this card, and being able to bring it back to your hand every time you play a spirit, means you have a way to destroy your opponent's best enchantments repeatedly. Definitely worth the ad. And the last spirit I'm adding, because honestly there were a lot of good spirit creatures in the deck already, I didn't have to make too many changes, is Selfless Spirit. Now, we really just needed an extra way to protect our board from board wipe, and Selfless Spirit is a fantastic option. Since we're going wide, you better believe we have some powerful enchantments to buff all of our tokens, and one of the best is probably Favorable Winds. For 2 mana, all your flying creatures get +1/+1. You can't really find a better rate than that. Unless you're talking about Intangible Virtue. Now, white does love its creature tokens, and this not only gives +1/+1, but also gives Vigilance. Also for 2 mana. And last but not least, a new card from Crimson Vow, Wedding Announcement. On face value, this is a little bit more expensive. However, for the first 3 turns this is out, this either gets you a token to block or card draw, and once it flips, it's another +1/+1. For artifacts, I went pretty light here. I only added 2. The first one is Archaeomancer's Map, which is probably one of the best white ramp cards that's been printed in ever. This one definitely ate up a lot of our budget. I think it is the most expensive card in the list, but it's well worth it, and I think you definitely need to have it in this deck. And of course, keeping with the tribal support, we added 1 more buff in Heraldic Banner. Not only is this a mana rock, but it buffs all the creatures of the color of your choice, which would probably be white, +1/+0. Super good, deserves to be in every tribal deck, and it should be in here. I mentioned briefly before that 1-to-1 interaction was kind of low in this deck and was definitely something I wanted to improve, and nowhere is that more evident than the instance we added. Dovin's Veto is an amazing counter spell. The fact that it itself cannot be countered is also just extra gravy. I wouldn't say it's better than Counterspell, but It's pretty close. Now, Geistlight Snare might actually be better than Counterspell. In this deck, you'll probably be casting it for 1 in a blue most of the time, maybe just for a single blue. And I don't know about you, but a single blue for a mana leak is pretty damn good. Now, countering stuff is fun, but sometimes you just need to blow something up. Pongify is an awesome choice here. I would also recommend Rapid Hybridization. However, I only had space for one of them in the deck, both card-wise and budget-wise, but if you have both laying around, I would definitely find space for both. Now, as much as I want to put the new Kaya from Crimson Vow into this deck, obviously the colors didn't match, so I had to do a little bit of digging to find a suitable replacement. And I think I found that in Elspeth Tyrell. Its plus ability gains you life for each creature you control, which should be a lot. Its negative gives it blockers to protect itself, and its ultimate is a board wipe that's pretty easy to achieve and leaves all your tokens in peace. I think that's pretty awesome. And for sorceries, we just went with a couple of good old board wipes, or new ones in the case of Invitation Only, which actually favors decks that go wide like ours. Being able to pick how many creatures each player sacrifices means we can pick enough that all of our opponents have to sacrifice their best stuff, and we still have a token army. Supreme Verdict is a classic though for Azorius, and rightfully so. This board wipe makes sure everything ends in the bin. And we only added one land to the deck in Windbrisk Height. Now, this should be super easy to activate, as we should have 3 creatures that can attack every single turn, and hopefully you get to cast something really big off of this card. I think it's an awesome one in this deck especially, but make sure to check out all the other hideaway lands for your other decks, because I think they're underplayed. And now for the 15, I took out Angel of Flight Alabaster is a okay card. However, it's not a spirit, and its recursion ability is a little bit expensive, and we had other options in the deck, so I cut it. Boreas Charger and Knight of the White Orchid fell into the same category of being okay ramp, but not being spirits. So I cut them in favor of Artifact Ramp instead, and I think that was probably a better choice. Custody Squire on its face seems like it could be a fun card, but everyone except for you is going to vote for the worst card in your grave. It's not worth the 5 mana. Yobi is another one of those cards that seems like it'd be good, however it is super expensive at 7 mana. So the chances of you casting this and then getting its trigger is very low. There's actually a much greater chance one of your opponents is going to kill it on their turn before you even have a chance to activate it. So for that, I'm going to cut it. Sire of the Storm also fits in this category of being way too expensive for its ability. It does have a great ability, and you could draw a lot of cards assuming you get to untap with it, but there are so many other good card draw spells in this deck that it was an easy cut. Spectral Shepherd is an okay card, but we don't have a ton of ETB effects in our creature base. And honestly, in terms of protecting creatures, we added a few really awesome board wipe protections, so I don't think this one's needed anymore. Field of Souls is a very conditional card, and I feel like we don't have enough recursion in the deck to make it worth an include. Promise of Boonray is an amazing card in Aristocrat style decks and combo decks. This deck is neither of those. Artifact wise, we're just taking out the trash again. I just really do not like these diamonds. You can find so many better mana rocks, and we did. Sudden Salvation is not what you want in a deck meant to go wide. Bringing back 3 creatures after board wipe is cool, but how about we just protect all of our creatures instead? Now for sorceries, you may remember we added 2 board wipes. That's because we took 2 out. Flood of Tears is not a good card. It bounces everyone's board, and if you had stuff on the board, which why would you be board wiping if you did, you get to play something. Not very good. Kurtar's Wrath is another board wipe we just had a better option for. I think by Invitation Only is a much better include and does what this is trying to do just better. And last but not least, lands. As with most precons, the mana base is not the best, and you could definitely spend some money upgrading it and see benefit there. However, there's one card I will always take out of precons, and that is Temple of the False Gods. It is not a good card. It is not going to be your Soul Ring. You have to wait till turn 6 for this to actually work as a land. Cut no matter what. Even in a landfall deck, I would not put this card in. That's how much I dislike it. And there you have it, the 15 I recommend putting in, and the 15 you should take out. Now let's do a quick side-by-side of the CMC charts just to get an idea of how much we slimmed the deck down by. It's definitely not as much as the Vampiric Bloodlines Precon, but it still helped a little bit and we trimmed the fat, as it were. And how we do for the key categories of ramp, card draw, 1-to-1 removal, and board wipes. Let's compare them both here as well. And let's just go category by category. Now you may notice that ramp is down 1 from the original Precon. However, the ramp that I put in was so much better than the ramp that I took out. Coupled with the fact that we reduced the CMC of the overall deck, I felt like it was okay going down just 1 ramp card. Card draw pretty much stayed the same. I think the only real change here was I swapped Wedding Announcement for Sire of the Storm. Both were pretty conditional card draw. One, you had to make sure you had enough mana to actually play something before it got removed, and Wedding Invitation is just a better card overall. Yeah, you may not always get the card draw there, but at the very least you're getting a 1/1 token, and no matter what, by turn 3 you're getting a buff. 1-to-1 removal is definitely where I saw the biggest weakness in the deck and is where I focused on adding the most cards to. I definitely would recommend adding potentially 1 to 2 more. I know I talked about rapid hybridization earlier. I still think that would be a good add. And for board wipes, we went up by 1. Now it is a conditional one. It's the ultimate of that Planeswalker, Elspeth. However, the 2 board wipes we swapped definitely improve our board wipe suite and makes it much easier and much more reliable, in my opinion. All right, guys, that's gonna do it. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't liked or subscribed yet, make sure to do so and comment down below if there's any cards you thought I should have added or should have kept in. All right, I'll see you next time.